My position on this is that anyone that would be in favor of striking Syria, a preeminent strike, that you really need to bone up on your facts, because there's a lot of Russian forces over there, and we certainly, don't want to get in a war with Russia. We've had all these tensions ratcheting up with, all the crap about the Russian collusion. Who knows how much of that's true, how much of it's embellished or made up. There's been Russian troll farms. Yes, we know the Russians have tried to, sabotage our political process to a certain extent. That being said, I don't believe the Russians fixed the election. I got a journalism degree, and a lot of you folks don't. And I've read all the stuff, the in favor, the people saying there was no Russian collusion, and all the stuff in the middle. And I really don't think there's any hard evidence that Russia swung the 2016 election. I don't believe that. And I think that the Clinton people are behind a lot of this nonsense because they're upset that, she lost. And they're also upset that WikiLeaks aired their dirty laundry to the public and to people all over the world, the fact that the Democrats did cheat and they did rig some of their own primaries during the Sanders versus Clinton presidential race. And I know this will upset the neoliberals that I say that. And some of these diehard Democrats. I really don't care. I'm not a Democrat, so I just call it like I see it. And that's, I'm an independent. I've been an independent person as well as an independent voter most of my life. So I don't have a dog in the fight as far as that goes. I think both parties are corrupt. But getting back to the issue of Syria, we'll wait and see what happens. If we do get into some sort of conflict over there, send more troops over there and start bombing the Syrian forces, all it takes is one errant bomb to hit some Russian forces, and we could have Russia retaliating against us, against our allies. We don't want that. We certainly don't want another world war. I agree with Trump to the extent that it's better to be friends with the Russians and to try to get along than to fight with them. Because the Cold Wars can turn hot in the blink of an eye. And anyone that lived through the original Cold War, like a buddy of mine I was talking with a while back, who some of them had to do these crazy drills where they actually thought a few times in history where nuclear war from Russia had been launched. So they had to go in bunkers, they had to get under their desk at school, do all these sorts of crazy things. We don't want a nuclear war. We certainly don't need another world war. And so we need to figure this crap out diplomatically. Any of the civilians that have been killed over there, that's what happens when there's a war. Unfortunately, people die and civilians die. And that's just an unfortunate fact of life and of war. And anyone who's been in conflict would tell you that. But make no mistake about it, war is bloody and war is hell. And anyone who would tell you differently is lying to you. I haven't served myself, but I have some good friends that serve in the military. I have friends who have served in Iraq, and so I've heard some of these stories of what it's like. And I mean, I actually did back when I was at journalism school, back in college, I did a big project, a big paper on war reporting. And I looked at the good and the bad of war reporting. This is during the Iraq War, so this is why I was really interested in that at that time, because we basically got lied into that war by all the lies about WMDs. And George Tenet, the head of the CIA at the time, was he FBI or CIA? Sorry, but I can't remember without Googling. But he said that it was a slam dunk, that Saddam had links to Al-Qaeda and there was WMDs, and they said they had uranium, they're going to try and make nukes. All these lies. And we know that all this stuff was faulty intelligence. And a lot of it, I think, just stuff they were making up to lie us into a war. Because that's what Bush and Cheney and Rumsfeld and all those Wolfowitz and all those damn chicken hawk neocons wanted. They wanted us to go in and take out Saddam and regime change in Iraq. And, of course, companies like Halliburton and all these oil companies and whatnot had billions of dollars of profit waiting for them when we did go in. So I think that war was certainly about power, and it was a political war, but it was also about oil and about money. And so not much has changed with the Middle East. We're talking about a smaller country here, Syria, but things are very much in turmoil in that country, and they've had hundreds of thousands of refugees going to Europe and to other countries. Some of them have come to America as well, seeking asylum, just to get themselves and their families out of that war-torn country. So, war is never good, even if there is a so-called just war, like maybe World War I or II. You could argue World War II was a just war with everything that's going on with fascism and Hitler and the dictatorship in Japan and the fact that these countries were rapidly invading everybody else and conquering, taking over other countries, killing off a lot of civilians and doing all kinds of heinous things as they went. But we need to figure out some way to deal with this diplomatically. It's too bad. I mean, we really need smart people in there around the president who can deal with this in smart ways. And I think one of the dumbest things we could do is just start launching bombs and, kind of shoot first, ask questions later mindset. So I'd hope that this would give you pause, that you'd all think about this. I've seen people in the corporate press cheerleading war already, just like we saw with Iraq. And I think it's a disgrace. And I don't think these people should be working in journalism, because if they're doing their due diligence, they would ask a lot of questions and get to the heart and the meat of the matter here. And basically, we need to figure out why it is that they're talking about we might get in a conflict in Syria. What are the reasons for this? Why do we have any business being there? And how will this benefit our country? And the fact is, it's not going to benefit the average person at all. The only people that will benefit are the very wealthy and the people in defense contracting and whatnot, who are going to make a shitload of money, anytime this country goes to war. And that's what you need to keep in mind, that a lot of these wars are for profit. People do benefit from them. It's not the average person. It's not you or I. And it's not the average person serving in the military either. It's these people in defense contracting, some of these sleazy politicians, the folks in the military-industrial complex, the Northrop Grumman's and the Boeings of the world. So we need to keep that in mind anytime there's saber-rattling about war. But my stance on this has not changed. In fact, things are more dangerous now than they were in 2011 because Russia is there. And we don't need a wag-the-dog operation here, folks. We ought to be spending our resources, the tax dollars we do have. I know the Treasury is being looted right now by these crazy tax cuts that benefit the very wealthy. But we need to be investing in education and infrastructure. And we should raise the wage for average workers. I live in Indiana. There hasn't been a minimum wage hike here in forever, since the last time there was a federal minimum wage hike back in 2006. So that's ridiculous. Nobody can live on $7.25 an hour or whatever, And so we need to invest in our own people. We need to quit worrying about what's going on halfway around the world, and all these people are suffering in Syria. I'm sorry about it. I feel bad for them. But you know what? It's their fight. Just like this country had to fight for independence, let them deal with it. I don't like Assad, and I don't really necessarily think the Russians have much business over there other than oil and a strategic interest that Putin and these guys think they have in that part of the world. But I certainly don't think the U.S. should be drug into it. We need to handle things diplomatically. We need to talk to these guys, and certainly economic sanctions can play a role at the UN and elsewhere. But we certainly don't need another dumb war. So anyway, I'm going to be taking a social media break, but I wanted to get this out there before I do that. All right. Have a nice evening, everybody.